My girlfriend, henceforth the GF, is not a crazy keyboard enthusiast like I am, but this was the sad, sorry state of her wireless keyboard. So she went to me to build her a new mechanical keyboard. And of course, I was very happy and excited to put my knowledge and skill and experience to actual use. Of my 3 keyboards, she gravitated toward the sound of the PE foamed GMMK Pro. But she also wanted a smaller form factor like a 65% while still being wireless like her old board. Being a non-enthusiast, her sense of what's cheap is still normal, so I couldn't go too expensive. This ruled out enthusiast entry-level boards like the NK65EE and KBD67 Lite with their high price tags. This left me with pre-built keyboards. I considered the Keycaps K6, but that too was quite expensive. After much digging, I settled on the RK G68 from Royal Clutch. Royal Clutch has released quite a number of these 68 key 65%s, and it's quite confusing. I've seen boards under names like RK68, RK G68, RK855, and RK837. And yes, all of them are 68 key 65%s. And yes, I'm pretty sure some of those are the same keyboard under different names. The G68 seems to be the latest model. It's tri-mode, meaning you can use it in one of 3 ways: wired, wireless with the included 2.4 GHz dongle, or wireless via Bluetooth. It also has this removable frame and a 3150 mAh battery. All of this for around $52 US. The GF picked the black version and I picked the RK Red linear switches. I bought it from a local video game store here in the Philippines. What version you can get will probably depend on where you are. On RK's website, they only seem to have an older version for $60 USD. That one has a smaller battery at 1450 mAh. On Amazon, the only RK G68 I could find cost $75 USD and had Gateron switches included. This seems to be the updated version with the bigger battery, but doesn't seem to include the removable frame. Before starting the modding process, I did a quick typing test with the stock keyboard. Pretty bad, but that's to be expected. The RK G68 has pre-lubed plate mount stabilizers. They're pretty mushy out of the box. I decided to replace them outright with some old cherry plate mounts I had lying around. I wholly modded these with some thin bandages and lubed them as normal with Crytox 205 grade 0. I initially also applied some bandage to the plate where the stabs clip on to tighten the fit, but this seemed to cause problems with the stabilizers getting stuck, so I had to remove them. I then set my sights on these RK Red switches. I'm not sure who made these switches. The only branding they contain is this little RK logo. In Nifty Keyboards RK G68 video, he mentioned that these switches were made by Huano, but I could not find a source for that. These are 3-pin switches with opaque white bottoms and clear tops. Upon inspection, I was surprised at the seemingly solid construction of these. The tops were nice and tight, no wobbling. The stems wobbled a bit, but nothing major. When I opened one, I saw that the spring was also a bit longer than normal, about 15 millimeters. There was also some factory lubing on the leaves/legs, but it was pretty inconsistent. Once I'd finished lubing all 68 switches with Crytox 205 grade 0, I learned that they were not quite as well built as I initially thought. Once you'd open the switch, the top housing became very loose. On some, you could even make a rattly noise just by tapping the top. But a more severe issue occurred when you pressed down and toward yourself on the switch. The stem would snag on something right at the bottom, causing a kind of sharp tactility. It was pretty bizarre. I concluded that it was because of the loose top housing, because right when it snags, you can see the top housing moving slightly. The keyboard also comes with 4 extra switches, 2 of which I had not opened. And when I checked those, they had no top housing wobble and they did not exhibit the snagging issue. Pretty disappointing. I didn't want to add any more cost to the build, so I had to stick with these. During normal typing, the issues aren't that big of a deal. There's some rattle and sometimes you'll feel the tactility, but it all still worked properly. If this were my board, I would definitely not be okay with this, but for a non-enthusiast, it should be fine. The next thing I did was add foam. I did a single sheet of 2mm EVA foam underneath the PCB like Nifty Keyboards did. I also cut up another sheet of 2mm EVA foam as plate foam and a sheet of PE foam for the mod of the same name. Lastly, I applied the Tempest tape mod with strips of masking tape underneath the PCB. Next, I tried the O-ring mod for tray mount keyboards, where you basically place 2 O-rings on each of the plate mount screws, one on top of the plate and one below. This sandwiches the plate in some flexi material, eliminating hard contact points. I use these O-rings with an outer diameter of about 4mm, hole diameter of about 1.5mm, and thickness of about 1mm. The O-ring mod introduced a couple of issues. First, the removable frame now couldn't snap on fully with the added height. And second, the on-off and Bluetooth wireless switches on the bottom of the board were now too recessed in the case and hard to reach. The mod makes the overall sound a little quieter and also a tad lower pitched. For this build, the issues outweigh the benefits, so this is a no-go. The final piece of this puzzle is the keycap set. The GF was very keen on the black version of this keyboard and also a matching dark colored keycap set, which brought along a major complication. If you search for cheap keycap sets, you might notice that most of them are white and dye sublimated. In the dye sub process, the dye mixes with the color of the keycap material. So printing on white means your dye color is unaffected. This also means that to print light colored legends on a dark colored keycap, you would need to dye the keycap color all around the legend in a process called reverse dye sublimation. This adds cost, making sets with reverse dye sub more expensive. The other option for light legends on dark keycaps is doubleshot. This involves injecting plastic into molds to not only form the keycap itself but also the legend. This is not as common as dye sub since you'd need to have a mold for it. So the options for this build got very limited, and with a normal person's budget, even more so. This experience got me rethinking the whole clones thing. I'm still against all forms of art theft, and that includes cloning keycap sets. But I'm more sympathetic to the people breaking into the hobby and trying to find affordable, good-looking in-stock sets that match their preference or the theme they've envisioned. I linked the GF to a couple of shops selling keycap sets, one of them being Yongshu/Glee Game. She saw the clone Olivia set there and instantly fell in love. And I cannot blame her or anyone else who chooses to buy sets like these. It's slim pickings out there, and even that faux Olivia set was too expensive. It was almost the entire cost of the entire RK G68. After a lot of digging, I discovered this OEM profile PBT double shot mold that I'd never seen before. It looked a lot better than the more common mold as seen in Kinetic Labs' Polycaps line. It was also much cheaper, as low as $22 for a 123 key set, but less common, so fewer options in terms of colorway. Locally, I could only find it in Sky Dolch, Nautilus, and Rudy colorways. I picked the Sky Dolch and had to order it from a China-based shop that hadn't sold very many items. Thankfully, it arrived just fine. I've also seen this mold on Amazon under the Mistel branding in more colorways but at a much higher cost. It also seems to be the same mold used to make the stock keycaps on Leopold keyboards. In my opinion, this mold looks a lot better than the Polycaps one. I much prefer the legends on it. The alphas are a little small though. I've already got one of those Polycaps mold keycap sets ordered, and I'll do a full comparison of the two in a future video. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that. Hey Kinetic Labs, maybe you can move Polycaps over to this mold, or maybe some other vendor can do the Polycaps thing with this mold. I love what Kinetic Labs is doing with the color themes, but the legends on the mold they're using just do not look good to me. But back to the build. It's pretty much complete already, but unfortunately we are under lockdown, and so the GF won't be able to use this just yet. It remains to be seen if there are aspects of this that she'd want changed. With more of a budget, the first thing I'd do is upgrade the switches. For just 15 more US dollars, you could have Gateron yellows in this thing, and that would be a massive improvement. Speaking of budget, let's break down the cost for this build. All of these prices will be converted converted from the Philippine peso value that I bought them for. The keyboard is $52 US and the keycaps $22. This would be your primary cost. The cherry plate mount stabs are $9 US, and you can find Duroc plate mounts for about the same price nowadays. These are optional. These next costs I would call investment costs, because these are all items that you would be able to use for future keyboard builds. So you can't exactly add them to the cost of this build, but you should still budget for them. These are items like the foam, tape, tools, and lube, and they all amount to around $26 US. And lastly, the upgrade cost would be $15 US for Gateron yellows. So you've got a price tag ranging in value from $73 US to $98, plus an investment cost of around $26 USD. Not bad. This was a lot of fun, and I'm pretty happy with the result considering how little it all cost. I'd love to do this again, so if you're in the Philippines and want a keyboard, hit me up. No strangers though, unless you're a celebrity or influencer whose status I can use to get watch time. We'll end this video with a couple of sound tests. The first will be the final config for the GF with the RK red switches, Sky Dolch keycaps, and no O-ring mod. And for the second, we'll use my Gateron yellows, NP Crayon keycaps, and compare it with and without the O-ring mod. I wanted to also use the Sky Dolch set for this second test, but I discovered that frustratingly, they interfere with switches that aren't the RK reds, despite being OEM profile. I'll dive deeper into this in the upcoming comparison video. If you'd like to support my journey to monetization, please stay until the end of the sound tests. We are so tantalizingly close. And if you found this video helpful, informative, entertaining, or any other positive adjective, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching.